Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Forgotten Hockey Players of Broadway, a nostalgic look back at our favorite Rangers from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm Tom Browning.
With my co-hosts, Rob Berger and Mike Browning.
We can be heard on Google Play, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and of course, our website at gotommyboyproductions.libsyn.com. That's gotommyboyproductions.libsyn.com. Please check it out. You can capture all of our episodes on our webpage. You can contact us by just clicking on the contact bar. You can leave a message. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear about the players that you would like for us to profile. Love to hear about maybe some of the seasons other than the 60s, 70s, and 80s that really made an impact on you as a fan. Again, we will be going off the menu every once in a while. We'll be talking about the current day New York Rangers, the state of the franchise, previous playoff games, impactful trades that took place in New York Rangers history. So wherever you listen to us, please hit subscribe. It's free. So without further ado,
here are your hosts, Tom Browning, Mike Browning, and Rob Berger.
Welcome to the Forgotten Hockey Players of Broadway. I'm Tom Browning, along with my great friend and broadcast partner, Rob Berger. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. Happy summer and happy hockey off-season.
Yes, it's been a while since we've had a show. Hopefully we can add more shows to the docket, less lag time between shows. But what I'd like to do today is kind of touch on the Ranger season. It was a very entertaining season, I thought. It was an eye-opener in a lot of ways. And success is something I really want to talk to you about a lot on this show. And how do we grade this season? Did we really get a true read on this team, looking back at it now, after watching them play Pittsburgh, Carolina, and then ultimately failing to the, at the time, defending champs, the Tampa Bay Lightning? What do they have to do going forward? And, you know, just what are your overall thoughts to start the show? How would you grade the season? Just give us some thoughts about, you know, where they are right now.
Based on what I thought going into the season and my expectations for this team, you know, they get an A+. I mean, it depends how, if you want to grade it based on points and how far they win in the playoffs. I mean, I didn't expect this team to be a playoff team, or if so, to be an 8th seed, and to have some difficult decisions at the trading deadline. And this team was the exact opposite of that. I would have liked to have seen more usage of the kids instead of waiting for the playoffs, especially for Lafreniere, who didn't really play in the power play that much in the regular season, not until the end. I'd be a little nervous about the Cop trade if he doesn't come back. Giving up a pick like that, it depends. As a fan, is a first-round pick worth it to make the Eastern Conference Finals? I don't know. But I could tell you, of all the teams in the Eastern Conference, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a team that has as much going for it into the next season as the Rangers do. I was thinking about that all day today, and with the exception of perhaps Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida, and Tampa Bay might not even be on that list because they just keep getting older. Although, man, how Breezeball has never won a GM of the Year award, I don't know. Got a couple good players from Nashville for McDonough.
Yeah. But,
I mean, the future is so bright for this team. It is remarkable.
This is pretty unusual, and it's not a bad thing, because I think that's what makes sports talk, interesting and fun. Is I agree with virtually everything you said here. I really do. I am concerned about the Cobb trade. I thought Drury gave up an awful lot for a guy who more than likely will not be on the team this year. Albeit the first round pick for the Rangers would have been at the tail end of the first round.
Uh-huh.
I agree that just to get them to a better position, competing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I was not all for that. I would have liked to have had the season go more organically, if you will, with the kids playing more, like you said. I too thought that they got an A+ as far as results go, but I don't think they got an A+ as far as, the moves, the moves and the strategy that it took to get there. I would have rather have seen them not do as well in the playoffs if it really represented just where they were with the talent that they drafted, the young team, going out and getting Cup. I thought, I like you, I was not comfortable with that. Making the move for Braun, I was not a real believer in that move either, even though it didn't cost them a lot. I would have liked to have seen Lafreniere play more. I agree. I'm not sure where Kako fits in. I think Kako had opportunities to distinguish himself, and I know you could throw a lot of numbers at me, a lot of analytics at me that he did well, but I don't know where this kid is. I know he's only 21, but he's still the number 2 pick in the draft. So I think going forward, it'll be interesting to see how he pans out. I just don't know how to look at the results in the playoffs when you look at how they won. They played a Pittsburgh team that had where Sidney Crosby was hurt. Crosby dominated when he played, I thought. I thought he was remarkable when he did play. They were facing a third-string goalie. You know, they didn't have Jarry. They didn't have DeSmith, third-string goalie, and I actually thought he actually outplayed Igor. I really thought he did. And then you take it to the second round, and of course you had Ante Ranta, who I loved when he was with the Rangers. But Anderson, it's not Frederick Anderson. And how would the Rangers have even competed more than 4 or 5 games in that series if Anderson had played? And then, of course, they played Tampa Bay after Tampa Bay had a long layoff. I think it was a 10-day layoff. And I thought the Rangers did, to their credit, take advantage of a slow Tampa Bay team that was rusty. But then once they got their wheels, I thought the Rangers were totally outclassed in that series. So with that said, do we still give them an A+ if they had lost in the first round against Pittsburgh, which I think they probably would have if Crosby was healthy and if Jarry or even DeSmith had played? What are your thoughts about that?
Personally, for me, again, I had zero expectations for this team. So yeah, I would. But I would understand if people felt differently. That's the thing about North American sports, right? We have the 2 seasons, right? The regular season and the postseason.
Right.
And just one thing, I don't know if you saw it today, but Kako is coming back.
Yes, he was signed, and Gettinger and a few other names that have been in the system a long time, like Ronning and a few others, are not coming back. But those guys, I don't think any of those, except for Kako, maybe the defenseman Hayek, may have a future with the team. I don't know I think the other guys are just career minor leaguers. But with that said, go ahead.
Hayek could be a depth guy,
right?
A number 7, right? Number 6, number 7. But yeah, the rest of them. I'm just, from where I'm sitting as a non-Ranger diehard, I'd be very excited going into next season. Obviously, depending on this postseason and what happens, or this offseason, who signs where. So many signings that are so curious. Giroux and Malkin and Goudreau are just the top of the list for me. That's just from a Rangers impact. Where those 3 are going to go. I mean, I don't know. Everything you're reading out of Pittsburgh is that Malkin's not playing nice.
No, he wants 4 years. I guess they're offering him 3. I don't think he fits the Rangers. I mean, Malkin 4 or 5 years ago, I would love him on the team, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Power forward, power center. But I think he wants to stay with Pittsburgh. I think he's, like you said, he's playing hard right now. Rumor out of Chicago is that Kane is going to ask for free agency on Wednesday, and then his top pick of the Rangers. But unless Chicago picks up 60-70% of that salary, I can't see how the Rangers can make a move for another smallish forward who's in his 30s now. Evander Kane today was given it. Edmonton allowed him to seek free agency. I don't know how old he is. He's probably close to 30 years old himself. Big, strong power forward. I think he would fit the Rangers, except, I don't know about his attitude and his reputation, how he is in the locker room.
It's weird, right? I mean, they loved him in Edmonton. The players, at least publicly, said how much they loved him.
Yeah.
So, 22 goals in 43 games in Edmonton.
Absolutely. Wow. He's a great player.
And then he had some bonehead moves in the Colorado series.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're getting 30 years old. I mean, he's a perennial 20 goal scorer. I mean, and 30 goals, I think twice he's got 30 goals.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big power forward, man.
He is.
He's good. He's just, I mean, personally, I'd rather have him than Patrick Kane just because I wouldn't want anything coming out of that Chicago team that was around in 2010. I wouldn't want any of those guys near my locker room.
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to the National Hockey League radio today on XM Radio, and they were talking about that. Before I get to that, though, I do want to comment on Evander Kane. I think he would protect the less physical forwards on the Rangers, which are many, and I think they would play a little bigger, a little stronger, a little taller, a little meaner with Kane on one of the wings. I wish Kreider played that way all the time, but he doesn't. But getting back to Chicago, you have to give, they were saying about all the bad stuff that came out of that organization, but you have Duncan Keith, who retired today at 39 years old. He had a great career, first ballot Hall of Famer. The guy played hard. He was a player with integrity, an honest player. And you still have to give the team credit for winning 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years. I mean, you can say all you want that the players maybe should have.
I give them tons of credit for that. Remarkable team. If they weren't banged up, you talk about teams being banged up. They were banged up in 2012, and Phoenix upset them, and the Kings lucked out with that because the Kings got to play Phoenix instead in the conference final instead of a healthy Chicago. Oh, I give them total credit for that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want anybody associated with that team near my locker room. That I'm not a hockey GM, but so no one's got to worry. Patrick Kane still has a lot of good years. I think he is, had 26 goals this year. I mean, he'd be great on a power play anywhere he went. He is good. He can still score, and he can. That team is disgusting, and not enough happened to any of those people.
Yeah, again, I don't know if you can blame the players. I mean, the front office, the coaching staff, definitely. I don't know how much responsibility kids at that age playing really knew about what was going on, or if they did, what could they, what are they going to do at that age, right? I mean,
I think Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane were stars on that team, as was Duncan Keith, and they could easily said something. You want to say a rookie who's 19 years old, who has his job on the line, is afraid to say something? All right, I'll hear that argument. But Toews and Kane and Keith were superstars at that point. So
do we know if they did anything, or do we know if they didn't?
According to the players that were in the report, everybody knew.
But is there any way of knowing if they didn't go to bat for the person that was involved here? I forget the player's name, but is there any?
No players came forward.
No players came forward. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know any. I can't say I know anything about it. You obviously know more about that situation than I do. But with Kane, I mean, it would be very Ranger-like for them to make a move like that.
Wouldn't it be?
I mean, it would be
like if they signed him in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, it really would be. And again, they're being seduced by. That's my point. I guess I kind of got off the point a little bit. If they lose in the first round to Pittsburgh, is everybody's excited about the prospects next season?
Yeah,
when you consider.
I think so.
Well, when you consider that the same guys would be facing free agency, the Petranos, would be the Cops, the Strome, and would Drury have made a different calculation with players selected or off-season moves if they get bounced in the very first round to Pittsburgh, a team that finished behind them, a team with a third-string goalie beating you in the playoffs? I mean, to me, I want to temper the enthusiasm a little bit and focus more on how they won and maybe why they won. To me, it's a big difference beating a Pittsburgh team and a Carolina team that's at full strength with their stars and everything else than eking by in 7 games a third-string goalie and a second-string goalie. I think that's a big, big difference. And I'm just wondering if the Rangers are really as good as we think they are right now, if they're as far along as we think they are right now. I'm not so sure. I was very disturbed by the way they played against Pittsburgh without Crosby, without their goalies, and having as difficult a time with Carolina without Anderson. So that's my concern. But I agree with you.
Antti Raanta, I don't think is the Carolina drop off in net isn't anywhere near close to the Pittsburgh drop off in net. You know,
well, Anderson was a trophy candidate this year. He had an outstanding season.
He did have a great season. I mean, wasn't down to a third string. Yeah, I mean, you know, these are hypotheticals that they can never be addressed. You know, yeah, I think. Listen, the youth of this team, much like, you know, going out west with the Ducks and Kings, the advantage that the Rangers got is these guys got 3 rounds in the playoffs. And that is amazing for guys this young, including Shesterkin, to have this many, you know, and Shesterkin, even more remarkably, to struggle in those games against Pittsburgh and then come back. And he had a superb series against Carolina. And the only game where he wasn't better than expected was Game 6 against Tampa Bay. What's interesting is that the Rangers actually did a really good job shutting down Tampa Bay offensively. I think that, you know, that series was more that just Tampa Bay just controlled the game. But Tampa Bay wasn't, you know, lighting it up, right? They just controlled possession and the flow of the game.
Well, they did. You're right. In the first 2 games, the Rangers were in control. But again, Tampa Bay was very good. I thought their offense was dramatically improved in the last several games of that series. I think they really outplayed the Rangers. I thought their offense was fine. You know, the latter part of that series. You don't?
They just They just didn't generate a lot of offense. You know, compared to other series. Well, with the exception of, I'm referring to the first 2 rounds, because Colorado's defense is just not. You know, we talked on the side about this. Colorado's defense just doesn't get enough credit because their offense is so good. It's amazing to think that how good their defense is too. It's just not fair. How good, you know. Listen, but Colorado's in their team that was the worst team in hockey one season. I think like 3rd from the bottom a year later, and guys like McKinnon and Landis. You know, that's how they got McKinnon and McCarr from being so bad. But, you know, certain guys on that team, you know, Johnson, Landeskog, and so on, played through it. And that's all. We've talked about this for years. Our biggest concern about the Rangers is they never get to that level.
No.
They never have. Right?
Right. Yep. They don't have enough superstars.
The Kings and Ducks did it, and now they have a ton of talent. The Sharks are at the bottom now in the process of, with Mike Greer starting over. You know, well, they're not really starting over because they did, I think, a year and a half ago. But you know, I mean, Florida was really bad. It's just, yeah. Yeah,
they don't bottom out. Their Rangers. That's my concern.
Right. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
You know, they have to give the kids a chance, and even if it meant being ending up after a decent season, tailing off if they didn't make those trades, maybe tailing off at the end, and maybe even missing the playoffs or just eking in, but getting a middle round draft pick in the first round.
Yep.
You know, you're right. They just, even Chicago right now, they're getting a lot of heat for aggressive losing, I guess you want to call it, or aggressive tanking, or I forget the term that I've been hearing thrown around. But they realize in this league you got to do what Pittsburgh did. I think that's what teams do, you know, to catapult themselves back into contention 4 or 5 years later. It's tough to do it.
Chicago and Boston.
Yeah. Well, Boston
did.
Was
Chicago and Boston was 15 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Well, Boston, they said it was an outlier in that they didn't tank for first-round picks. Their team was built on all second-rounders. You know, Marchand and Bergeron and Krejci and all those guys are second-round players. But they're an outlier. But all the other teams that have won have had many first-round picks. Yeah, I don't know, Rob. I think you need your first-round picks playing a large part. And that's, I think, a concern that we have with Kako and Hedl. Even though Hedl had a good playoff, is it going to transfer and carry over to next season? What is Kako going to wind up being? Is he just going to be a physical third-line defensive winger? Okay, but that's, you know, he was a second-round pick, the second selection in the draft. You know, is Lafreniere going to be anything special when given a full season? These guys,
I think he's going to be amazing. Again, the ultimate reminder: in as many games in their career, Lafreniere has more even strength goals than Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, and that is remarkable. The fact that I do not understand why it took so long for him to play on the power play. And another crazy stat that is just, when I had a feeling about this, but I still had to look it up. If you go hits by Rangers forwards, he was fourth. Only Hunt, Kreider, and Gaudreau had more hits than Lafreniere. He was fifth. Yeah. Reeves, Hunt, Kreider, and Gaudreau had more hits than Lafreniere this year. This kid is going to be amazing.
I hope so.
And then how we ended that season, was it that the first line just didn't show up, or that Tampa Bay was so good in shutting them down?
Well, again, that's either way you look at it, it's not good. I mean, you had two players that supposedly are some of the top players in the league. You know how I feel about Kreider. I think there'll be a humongous regression next year. Where's Chris? Someday there's going to be a T-shirt where it's going to say "Where's Chris?" Because I mean,
someday there's going to be the number 10 in the Raptors also.
Number 10.
Yeah, isn't that what number he wears?
No, Kreider. That's Panarin. Isn't Panarin number 10?
Oh, Panarin's 10. Kreider's 20. I'm sorry. Number 20 will be in the Raptors.
Well, I don't know if he is or not. If he is, I'm not. I didn't think Hatfield should have gotten his number 11 retired, and I don't think Kreider does. But you're right. I think obviously the press loves him. He's very articulate, very eloquent, smart kid. He's a lifelong Ranger. Rangers don't have too many of those types of players, but I don't believe Chris Kreider is the type of guy that you win Stanley Cups with or build Stanley Cup champions around. I just don't see it. To me, he let his team down. He was not physical in the series. He disappeared. He didn't perform like he did in the season, as did Zibanejad. Zibanejad had some good moments in the playoffs. He was hot there for a while. But our best players are not as good versus other teams' best players in the playoffs against the top teams. They just aren't. And you're looking at a Tampa Bay team that lost Gaudreau, that lost so many players from last season, right? Yanni Gourde, they lost. They didn't have
Blake Coleman.
Yeah, Blake Coleman. They lost so many players from last season. And who was the kid that was hurt? He didn't come back.
Braden Point.
Yeah, I mean, they were decimated, and they played like champs despite that. And the Rangers,
they are not only champs, but they went to the Cup in 2015. They've been to 2 Eastern Conference Finals in that stretch also.
Yes.
Or the year before. They're also with Stamkos, Hedman, Kucherov.
Of course.
And
Tyler Johnson, again, is another guy didn't have this season. I mean, they lost a lot of players. And I was very impressed with how they played against Colorado. I thought they showed the gumption of a champion. I really did. They hung right in there.
Kreider was really good until the end of that Tampa Bay series. He was really good against Carolina.
Well,
he had 10 goals in the play. He had 10 goals and 6 assists in the playoffs.
Yeah, but there were times you didn't see Kreider, though. I mean, he played the half board. I'm telling you, Rob, I listened to the NHL radio a lot during, especially the first 2 rounds, and it was amazing how often the talking heads would say, why is it that the Rangers can't give 60 minutes of hockey every game? Why is it they're certainly not perceived as one of the harder working teams in the league? They're just not.
No. I mean, listen, we've talked about this a bunch. I mean, everybody has. This is a team that until the trade deadline struggled 5-on-5. I mean, after the trade deadline, they were very good.
Excellent point.
With the Kopp and Vetrano additions, but before that, they were abysmal.
No truer indication of work ethic and grit is 5-on-5. No doubt about it. If you have trouble scoring 5-on-5, that's because, for the most part, if you got a semblance of talent, you're being outworked by the other team. If you are not doing well 5-on-5 with some of the firepower that they had, and that's the point that they, especially against Pittsburgh, they were saying this team is not showing up. It's amazing that the Rangers have disappeared against a Pittsburgh team, and even against Carolina, they would say, again, we saw the Ranger team from Pittsburgh showing up against Carolina in Game 2 or Game 4. I mean, you don't hear that with other teams, that they're not giving 120%. And maybe that's the reason why Kreider's not a captain. Maybe that's the reason, because
I think he comes to the season as captain, though. I really do. Despite how you feel, do you disagree with that? Not how you feel, what you think will happen. Your prediction.
Oh, my prediction, what's going to happen next season.
Yeah, Kreider's the captain, right?
I'm not sure about that. I would not be surprised if they gave it to one of the younger players on the team. Fox, maybe. I'll tell you, I wish Lindgren's got the heart of a champion. I really do. If anyone should be a captain based on grit and courage and work ethic, it would be Lindgren, but they probably won't give it to him. Possibly Fox, or maybe they haven't had a captain, Rob, in how long? 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
Since the big trade, since McDonough left. So, I mean, there's obviously concerns about the leadership of this team and whether they're captain material. I don't think they have one right now. I really don't. But we'll see. I mean, you could be right. They could name Kreider the captain. I don't think he's earned it, but they could. They might do it. But what are your thoughts about next season now? What do you think is going to happen during the offseason, free agency? We touched on Kane, the possibility. We touched on losing Kopp. Do you think we lose Strome as well?
Well, the fun thing would be, his brothers are RFAs. So
Dylan, yeah.
And Matthew.
And Matthew, so, I know, Arizona, right?
so sign all three. I don't know. I mean, right now they have decent cap space, but they don't have a lot of forwards. They only have 9 forwards under contract. Well, 10 if you count Kako. So I guess you should count Kako. They have 6 defensemen. Assume, I don't know how they would move Nemeth's contract, but I have to believe at this point after the playoffs that Braden Schneider starts the season with the team unless something, shocking happens, right?
No, he's going to play.
I'm forgetting Sammy Blais also.
Yeah, Sammy Blais come back. Sammy, that's going to be a huge return for them next year. And you know how I feel about him.
Yep.
I think he'll be a huge.
He'll be healthy. He was almost ready for the playoffs. Well, not almost ready, but he was at least skating. I don't think there's a chance he's coming back. I think Drury takes a safe route and signs either Kopp or Strome. Is what I think will happen.
Yeah, those would be safe moves. I don't know if I like those moves. I think it would be a safe move. I think they're going to have trouble scoring goals. I just don't see Chris Kreider at 30 years old scoring 52 goals. I think he's going to regress a little bit. Let's say he gives us 30 goals next year, which would still be, I think, a career high for him if he didn't have the season last year. You're losing, to me, Vetrano, who really played very well for the most part with the Rangers, gave them a goal scorer on the right side that they hadn't had really in a long time, a dependable, fast, north-south goal scorer. They lose him. That's a huge gap that they have to fill offensively. Let's say Kopp or Strome leaves. They have to make that up. You've got the loss of production from Kreider. Most likely, they need some firepower up front. They don't have any depth at center ice. So are they going to pull the trigger on something where they're going to have to give up a lot of their young players? And then we're faced with the same thing all over again. The cupboard becomes bare down in the minors or with their prospects. And then if they don't make or they don't win a Stanley Cup, then they're back to square one, starting to rebuild all over again. I think that's a real concern.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of centers out there.
No,
there never really is. But I mean, there's no big center out there that's coming to New York at least.
Yeah. We have to hope the kids can fill in the Othman or maybe Collier comes in and does something.
I don't know. I think we're one more year from Othman, right?
Well, he's right now as we speak. The development camp is going on. I think the Rangers have 37, 38 prospects. Collier, Othman are 2 of the top ones that they really want to see well. Othman feels that he's ready to compete for a spot. I don't know. I mean, what else is he going to say, right? I mean, you would not want him to say anything else that he thinks he can do it. But he had such a great year last year that maybe he can. Maybe he's their next legitimate goal scorer.
His OHL numbers are, off the charts.
Yeah, and it's needed. And Collier, he looks like he's a tough, hard-nosed player who can also score. Only getting better, and so he might become the power forward that the Rangers really, really, really need. Othman is not a shrinking violet either. He's a tough, hard-nosed player as well. Not as big, but he's a tough kid. So, I like some of these young guys, and I would not be too upset if they regressed from a standings standpoint next season, if they had fewer points, if these kids really showed some development. That includes Kako really blossoming into a player. Hedl, really proving that the playoffs wasn't a fluke. Lafreniere being the player that you think he can become. And then you got the two kids, Oppen and Cooley, at least doing well in the AHL if that's where they're placed next season. That would be great. I mean, that would be terrific. You know, Schneider making a big contribution next season. I'd like to see Fox kind of get it together a little better. You know, I thought he regressed the second half. He's not a very big guy. And I tell you, the more I see him, Rob, the way he skates, he's not a very good skater either. He's not Makar. He's not.
Nobody's Makar.
No, true. But they weren't saying that 2 years ago when Fox won the Norris Trophy.
Fox had a very good year. I mean, he was still a top 10 defenseman. He had an excellent year. I mean, he's still the cornerstone and a great signing.
No doubt.
You know, he's the future and, you know, local kid.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that. Oh gosh, I can't wait for the season to start. I can't wait to see where all these free agents go. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau is a big one, but he's not going to come. I mean, everybody says he's going to Boston. I don't know. You know, I think Winnipeg qualified Pierre-Luc Dubois. Listen, I think, you know, I can tell you one thing though: Rangers aren't regressing because Rangers leadership would never. That's not an option. There is an expectation that this team will be first or second next year. There's no way Dolan's letting any teams don't go backwards in New York.
That would be quite a feat if they lose all these guys like Vetrano and Strome and Kopp. And they lost Georgie. You know, you can say what you want about Georgie. Obviously, Colorado thinks very highly of him. You know, they gave him a nice
kind of. So the story out of Colorado is they wanted Kemper, they couldn't afford him because they just don't have the money that Colorado has to spend this offseason. So they told Kemper, they said the only way you're staying is if you take a middle tier goalie contract.
They say Sakic loved Georgie though. They say Sakic,
which is what Georgiev will get. He will get a middle, as he should. He hasn't done anything yet. I just wonder how many years they're going to give him.
He got 3 years. You got 3 years of 3.5 per.
Yeah.
3.5 per.
That's a middle tier goalie.
Well, I think that's a lot more than a middle tier goalie, isn't it? 3.5 per for 3 years.
I love Georgiev as a person. I think his I'll bring it up here. I'll bring up the goalie list, but he did some really cool things in the community while he was here.
Oh yeah.
I just don't think. Because listen, he had a bad season. It is what it is. I mean, to his advantage, he's really young.
26 years old.
Which is with the way the NHL is now, with how long they give goalies to, is fine. Yeah, listen, if you're going to play behind a defense, oh man, that's a defense I'd want to be behind. Right? I mean, so Colorado, that's a team. So his yearly puts him at 30th in the league.
Oh no, listen, no doubt. He had a tough season.
His contract. It's almost a lower tier.
Oh, it's 30th. Okay. 30th. Is this the new contract of 3.5 per?
Yep.
30th in the league?
Yep. 3.4.
All right. Well,
so he's 3. Yeah, he will. It comes out like it averages out. The cap hits 3.4 because it's like tiered over the 3 years. But yeah.
Well, again, he's being compared to other first-string goalies though too. So you got 30. How many teams are in the National Hockey League? You got 30 teams, right? 30-some-odd teams now. So you're looking at he's competing against 30 first-string goaltenders, which he has not been. To me, that's a lot of money that Sakic is paying, and they say Sakic just loves Georgiev. He said he loved him. He loved him when they saw him overseas, and he thought this was a great opportunity to get somebody that he thinks is a first-string goaltender. And 3.5, that's a nice little bump that he's got. And I don't know if too many backup goaltenders are getting $3.5 million right now.
I mean, there's people above him that aren't even as close to as good as he is. Kemper made 4.5 last year, or obviously his cap hit. He'll probably get a raise,
and deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, he won a cup. I don't know where. I don't know who's spending money. Who's got off the top of my head. I don't know who has the room for a goalie. Right.
Toronto is looking at Murray, I think, right now, right?
Yeah, that would be crazy. Just for just the Ottawa-Toronto thing. Listen,
right.
I really don't think Murray's done. 2 years ago, he was one of the worst goalies in the NHL. Last year, he just wasn't healthy.
He's won a cup, though.
On the way up. I don't know why he'd not want to be there. But I can tell you this, the best goaltender contract in hockey is by far Igor Shesterkin. He's the 11th highest paid goal in the NHL. That is amazing. That they could wrap him up. That gets, that wasn't jury, but that should get him on any list of, that's what everybody in the league is jealous of that.
Well, I hope he plays great next season. I don't, Sorokin's flashy and he's acrobatic. I'm not ready to really say that he's a all-world goaltender right now. You look at the guy who plays in Queens, Sorokin. You look at his numbers and how he played on a team that was.
So numbers-wise?
His 7 shutouts versus 3. Let me know the numbers. I think off the top of my head, Sorokin had 7 shutouts versus Igor's 3, I believe. He had it's a smidgen worse goals against average and save percentage, I believe. Or maybe even the same as Igor. And he played on a team that was far worse than the Rangers. Far worse than the Rangers. And Sorokin kept the Isles in so many games this season. He gets no consideration.
Well, no, he was what? He was 5th in voting, I think, Sorokin. I think that's where he was this year. So he wasn't that far off. No goalie contributed more. No goalie won more games for their team than Shesterkin did this year, and it was by a landslide. And if you bring up, which one did you say? Goals against? I've locked up. But Shesterkin's numbers compared to the competition were remarkable.
Well, Sorokin was very close, and he actually had more. I think it was 7 shutouts to 3. And you're looking for a team like the Islanders who needed shutouts because they didn't score. That's an amazing statistic when you look at that.
Listen. Shesterkin was 935. Sorokin was 925. Goals against Shesterkin was 207. Sorokin was 240. But as bad. So the Islanders were bad offensively, but they weren't that bad defensively. Compared to the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Shesterkin stole more games than any goalie in the league by far. I think he should have been the Hart. I think the argument that goalies can't win the Hart is silly. I don't think Matthews shouldn't have won it. You could have given it to McDavid. I would have been fine with that also. It's so funny. We just brush off Connor McDavid. He's so good.
Right.
His defense the second half of the season was so impressive.
I think
he
that's
became
why.
a shutdown guy out there.
Yeah. No, you're right. But I think that's why you don't give a goalie. Goalies are playing maybe 70% of the games, and McDavid's and Matthews, they're playing all the time, right? They have an influence in every game they play, whereas a goalie, if they're not playing, they don't, right? So that's probably, I'm sure that's the reason why they don't have, or very few goalies have won MVP awards.
His Shesterkin's MVP year was better than Price's MVP year, or better than Tebow's MVP year, and better than one of Hasek's MVP years. Here's what it is. Listen, Fox and Shesterkin.
I like him.
A lot of teams would like that.
I like him. To me, he played good in the playoffs. He didn't play great. There were some goalies that played great. I don't think he played great. I think he played, to me, the best he played, he was good. I don't think he was great in any, I just don't remember him just incredible in any one of those games. I thought he was good in a lot of the games. He was good, but he was awful. He was awful against Pittsburgh in 1 or 2 of the games, at least against Pittsburgh. I have to go back. It's been such a long time now, that Carolina series. But that Pittsburgh series, he left a lot to be desired. He really
just
did.
In 2 games, and
those are 2 big games of playoffs, man.
Here's a crazy number for you. If you look at offense generated by the opposing team and doing well against that and doing better than expected, Igor Shesterkin was good in 8 of the Rangers' losses. The next highest in the league was Vasilevsky at 2. He played well. The Rangers defense, I don't want to name names because, but Justin Braun did not have a good playoff. for sure.
Yeah.
Lindgren played really well for what he could do. I mean,
Right.
I can't even imagine what his doctor's appointments the week after the playoffs were like. How many X-rays and MRIs that guy must have got.
Exactly.
His insurance.
Fox wasn't great either.
Wasn't happy, but Shesterkin faces so much high danger, especially, there were a few games in the Tampa Bay series where Tampa Bay wasn't generating a ton of offense, but the offense they were generating was right in front of the net. And no goalie in this year's playoffs faced more activity in front of the net than Shesterkin. And it's not even close. And that if it's cumulative, that counts the Stanley Cup final. So if you throw in Tampa Bay, Kemper and Francouz and Vasilevsky, no goalie faced more.
Well, you know how I feel about those numbers, Rob. We can talk about this all day. It doesn't. Those analytics and my eye.
I get it.
They don't always reconcile. They just don't.
For people like Tom that don't get it, the expected goals takes into context the shot, where you shot from, who was in front of you. For example, if you do shots in the game and Rangers outshot Boston 25-23, that doesn't tell you anything, right? For example, Chris Kreider, this is right up your wheelhouse. Most of his goals are very high expected goals, right? Because he's on the doorstep, or it's a power play and he's wide open. In those situations, Igor Shesterkin is the best in the league by a mile. Shots in front of the net, hard to get 2 shots. It's the eye test. Expected goals is the perfect stat for people like you. And I don't mean that to be condescending. I'm being serious. Who aren't into super advanced things, it is the eye test. Where the puck was shot? Were you wide open? Was it a breakaway? Was there 2 defensemen in front of you? Was it deflected? And that's where Igor Shesterkin shines.
Well, I think the weakness is, and we talked about this before, it's when these situations happen, the time of the game, the pressure that exists at that particular point in time, when the great goalies, regardless of statistics or what have you, makes that key save or locks it down after maybe having a miserable beginning of the game or 2 lousy periods, but all of a sudden they stone you in the third period or in overtime and they refuse to give up the last goal. And I never saw that with the King. I never saw that. Unfortunately, Eddie wasn't great at that either. There's a reason why this team has won 1 cup in 82 years. And a lot of that has been that the city that loves their goaltenders, there's probably not a team in the National Hockey League that fawns over their goaltenders more than New York Rangers. The Montreal Canadiens don't, Toronto Maple Leafs don't, and they've had some of the best goalies, Jacques Plante, Glenn Hall, Ken Dryden. Boston Bruins, they've won cups with Tim Thomas and Jerry Cheevers. There isn't a city in the league that fawns and idolizes their goaltenders, their tragic heroes, more than New York Rangers fans and the organization. But when it comes time to shutting the door, when it comes time to refusing to lose, Ranger goaltenders have never, very, very rarely in 82 years, have been one to do just that for their team, to just refuse to lose. And, that's the thing that I'm still waiting to see. Let's see if Igor can do it, if Shesterkin can do it. I'm not sure. It's too early to tell yet. But that, to me, is what separates the great goaltenders, the Billy Smiths, the Grant Fuhrs, the Jerry Cheevers in the playoffs, Jacques Plante, all those guys that when they just had a crappy game or they're not playing well, when it matters the most, they do not give up the goal. And that's why I've never been a big analytics guy. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for it.
With all due respect, 2013 through 2015, Hank did that. And especially in 2014. And the Rangers wouldn't have made the Cup final in 2014 if Hank wasn't such a shutdown goaltender.
I don't know. I disagree, Rob.
I'm sorry.
Disagree with you.
Go back and look. Spend a couple of days. Go back and look. 2013 through 2015, Hank. He was. And, I will disagree about the Ken Dryden, except for his rookie year when he came in. I would love to do a revisionist history if you redraft those 70s and a couple other guys were in that for the Canadians. If it would have made a difference. But yeah, I think. I tell you, they don't even make the playoffs without Shesterkin this year.
I'm just referring to the way organizations, fans remember their goaltenders. They expected their championship goaltenders to play like they did to win the cup. They don't bring them, not every single Stanley. Those goaltenders are revered in the cities, but not like what you see in New York. And with Henrik Lundqvist, the situation that, and I'll say this to the day I die. If that game was still going on in LA in Game 6, Jonathan Quick is not giving up the final goal in that game.
Wait, but you don't blame Lundqvist for a 3-on-1 goal, do you?
Lundqvist.
You don't blame him for Alec Martinez's goal, do you?
Of course you do. Listen, why didn't
Of course you do. Right
of
before
course I do.
That, listen to Doc Emmerich's call. I apologize. I don't remember if it's Emmerich or Houston on CBC or Sports. I guess it was CBC at the time. Right before the goal, the comment was, great save by Lundqvist. It was a 3-on-1. A 3-on-1. That goal is not Lundqvist's fault. Martinez shot into an open net after Lundqvist made a great stop on a 3-on-1.
Jonathan Quick did not give up that last goal, and he made a lot of great saves to keep the Kings in.
I guess you didn't watch the 2013 playoffs then, because Quick gave up the last goal in 2013.
But he won 2 cups.
He did.
Right?
He did
win 2 cups.
Again, I mean context, but listen, I'm never going to say anything bad about Jonathan Quick.
How can you?
Yeah.
But I think you like Lundqvist a lot more than Quick.
No. I don't like Lundqvist more than Quick. You could argue that I might like Kelly Rudy more than Quick. That's a story for another day.
You like Kelly Rudy more than Quick?
I don't think he's better. I'm going to say, you said like. Do I think who's better? I think Quick is more skilled, or more athletic and made the flashier plays. But I mean, again, 2013, 2012, 15 Lundqvist.
I like champion. Billy Smith was not even an athlete.
All those 80s goalies except for Vernon and Wall were terrible. Give me a break.
Oh boy. What year were you born?
Fuhr's goal save percentage was like .872.
What year were you born?
78.
Okay. And you're going to tell me that those 80 goaltenders were not as good as some of these guys.
They're not even close to as good as the goaltenders as today. Now, granted, they played with pillows as pads instead of, goalies now have couches as pads.
Yeah, there's a lot more of a difference too.
I think they were like an inch past their legs.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more different. There wasn't any goalie interference stuff. It wasn't that you couldn't hit a goalie when they left the crease. There wasn't any of that stuff, and they didn't flop down either on every shot. They weren't on their knees and spread eagle on every single shot either. These guys were stand-up goalies, and they were playing angles, and they were very athletic. There's only a couple of Tony Espositos out there that were flopping around. Like they do today. I mean, you've got these guys 6'4", 6'5", and
because they're smarter.
Well,
that's what's not fair is that why you can't compare, because Billy Smith, Grant Fuhr, Esposito, any of these guys, give them the video and the training and they could be the greatest goaltenders in the world. We'll never know. It's like if Gordie Howe skated today, he would get destroyed. These guys are huge. The amount of guys that big, but Gordie Howe didn't have the advantage of a nutritionist and a strength coach and a skating coach and video and nutrition, all these things. And if you give these guys nutrition, they could be the, it's like it's silly. Like, what's it that, not just pivot baseball, but Adam Ottavino. Like I would strike out Babe Ruth every time. That's great. Babe Ruth didn't have any of the tools you have. So Babe Ruth was, these guys were, even Denny Potvin talks about the fact that they would be drinking after the game. Guys tonight, very few guys, partied like that, and it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see what these guys would be like, man. Well, if they had put Gretzky and Lemieux and Orr with a skating coach, they can make them even better.
I mean, we're going back 100 years on some of these guys. We're not not even 100 years. We're not talking about prehistoric time. So if you put these guys who are the best athletes of their time, born today, going through the same training as high schoolers, college athletes, professional athletes.
All sports.
To me, if they would still be the top athletes in their respective sports today if they, were in a time capsule somewhere and they had all the advantages and they were trained from the very beginning to to their end of their career. But
of course,
but anyway, it's an interesting topic and interesting conversation, and that's what makes sports. And and everything else. But just wrapping up here, so I think we got a good feel for. I think we agreed that the Ranger season was a success. I think they achieved a lot more. You and I both feel this way than we thought they were. Again, the risk I think is how you assess this season based on what happened in the playoffs with opposition, the challenges the opposition had with some of the injuries, and are we as good as we think we are? I think Ranger fans really, if you look at the sites, the fan sites, I think they really are expecting a lot next season. I don't think they're looking at the team critically enough, but most fans don't. Management, I think Drury is got a good head on his shoulders. I think he's very capable. It'll be interesting. I think there's going to be some holes next year they have to fill, and like you, I hope it's done organically. I hope they have kids to fill the gap. I'd rather them do that than sign these free agents. I really would. Let's see if these kids can, sink or swim. See if they can cut it. Let's see, if they can grow and develop. Anything else, Rob? Anything else that you want to add to that, or?
No, you're just, looking for, so much is going to happen. While we were talking, Colorado re-signed Nichushkin, so he's off the table.
Well, what a year he had, huh? My gosh.
Yeah, they got him for 8 years. Unfortunately for the Rangers, the Kings did give a qualifying offer to Elias Anderson, so he will not be coming back. Kings got him at 1 year for $750,000. Sorry, Rangers fans.
Well, the Kings look like they're ready to compete. I thought they had a good draft. I think you did too, right? They made some good moves at the deadline.
No, Kevin Fiala is a big signing, and they're in the same situation as the Rangers in terms of youth. A lot of kids, about 6 forwards and 3 defensemen. That this year will be huge. The one thing Rangers fans should be happy about, the big difference is the Rangers youth got 3 rounds in the playoffs and got to compete against, and including against Tampa Bay Lightning, who are, for this time of hockey, are a dynasty, right? For this, not compared to Islanders or Canadians, but for this era, when things turn around so quickly, this is almost as good as it gets, right? Such a good team. So that experience, I think, is what Rangers fans should be happy about. With including and for Gallant to see how these guys perform, and new ideas, and Sammy Blake coming back, and the Rangers will sign someone. It's just who is it going to be? Schneider has more experience now. I think they'll sign a backup goalie. I think they'll sign someone, even if it's someone that goes to shuttle back and forth to Hartford, just maybe a veteran with NHL experience. Especially with New Jersey got Vanacek, so there's guys, Wellington, there's guys out there.
Oh yeah, Holtby's out there, and you got even Lindgren's brother, and you got there's guys. There's going to be a backup goalie. There's no doubt about it. I'm surprised Tyler Wall didn't distinguish himself more in the minor leagues, but those things happen. These kids when they drafted, they're so young, and even the college kids. College kids play a 25, 30 game schedule. You really don't know really how good they're going to be against AHL competition or NHL competition.
Goal.
Yeah, and like you say, goaltenders do. Yeah, and goaltenders do progress, or they do develop later, like defensemen. Very seldom does a 20, 21-year-old kid shine and distinguish themselves right up front. But so real quick, LA or the Rangers? What team do you think? Despite what happened in the playoffs, I know you think that's a big advantage for the kids, and I'm sure that there is some advantage to that, no doubt about it. But whose roster would you be more impressed with right now, anticipating who the Rangers are going to lose? Prospects, because very few people follow the prospect pool like you do, and not just your team. Who do you think is positioned better for next season, the Kings or the Rangers?
For next season, the Rangers, but everything after that, the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Kings depth is. Listen, at the end of the day, the Rangers still have the Benajek, Kreider, Fox, Panarin. Wow, they're just right there. Just right there. The Kings don't have that. Mm-hmm. The Kings also have big question marks in that. Cal Peterson was supposed to be the number 1 goalie, and then became the backup. Quick is older.
Quick's still there.
lot of miles, and the plan was quick to be the backup the next 2 years. And going into camp, Cal Peterson's number one, but not by much. That's a big differentiator. But post the 2023 season, look out. If the Kings can have a healthy year from Doughty, he was playing so well last year before he got hurt, so well. If he can play like he was playing last year, then maybe the Kings.
Okay.
But yeah,
that's fair.
The Rangers firepower just for right now. But that just watch out for that Pacific Division. Kings, Ducks, and Sharks in the field.
Yeah.
Look out.
Ducks got a great young roster, and the Kings are built to last. It's amazing that we're talking about the Rangers having to win now, because that wasn't what we're talking about last season. It's not what you and I wanted to talk about last season, and here we are, we're talking about that, and that scares the heck out of me. So just finally, do the Rangers, do they advance? Do they have a better season next season? Do they have a similar season as this season, or do they revert? Do they regress a little bit and have a poorer season? What are your thoughts?
I think they play better but have less points.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what I think.
I think they play a little worse and have less points. I'm afraid that there's going to be some gaping holes in the team next year that it'll be very tough to fill. But they'll be competitive.
Because you're a New York sports fan, and you genetically can't be excited about your team. You have to. You can never see the positive. Listen, whenever you get down on the Rangers, just think about the Giants.
Oh, geez, thanks. Thank you. Thanks
You're
very
welcome.
little. Oh, man. All right, Rob. Listen, great show. Again, fans, if you can just leave some ideas on the website. We'll try to get a show going for sometime in August, if not definitely September. For my broadcast partner, Rob Berger, this is Tom Browning saying thanks for tuning in to the Forgotten Hockey Players of Broadway.
Thank you for listening. This has been a Go Tommy Boy production.